Carlton, who's a former Scotland Yard Special Branch and MI6 officer and the author of Black Ops.
I was undercover for Special Branch in a jihadi organisation.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe for free.
Welcome to part 2 of the Black Spy podcast's last week's recordings. If you haven't listened to part 1, go back to last week and have a listen. But this is part 2.
Yeah, I know, and the due diligence on this would have been that that there would have been a percentage of the elderly population that were more vulnerable anyway. But maybe not from COVID. I'm just paraphrasing the Dr. Rachel chat. I think that it's not for us to play God, but obviously moving. Obviously there was a huge impact in moving these people out of hospital beds and into a care home situation.
Back into homes, yeah. I mean, it's not the movement back. It's just the fact that they decided not to test people going back into homes. I mean, tell me when that is ever a good decision. If you can test people, and he's all screaming about getting the test done, wouldn't the first people that you test would be the most vulnerable? And even Dr. Rachel said that they're the most vulnerable people. Her question was, should the vaccine be given to everybody? But the most vulnerable by far are the elderly, right? So wouldn't that be the first people you would be testing? Rather than saying, you know what, this person may have a high temperature, may have this, a sneeze, whatever, but we'll send them back to the home anyway. And when you hear some of the, frankly, heart-wrenching stories of people running these homes saying that, we got Margaret back or whomever it was, and next minute everybody starts dying, I mean, this is problematic. We got to get to the end of this. Now, they're going to have some inquiry. It makes me laugh. They have some inquiry. Yeah. Now, this inquiry is taking forever and a day. When it's a police inquiry, boom, they're on it like red hot. Now this inquiry is taking forever and a day, hoping that everybody forgets. And, then we'll start talking about it when everybody's out of power and nobody will then be brought to question. It reminds me of the same inquiry they had with the Factor 8. Remember that Factor 8 situation they had with people dying from haemophiliacs, dying from AIDS because they bought Factor 8 from the United States, which was basically already corrupted with HIV, right? They were told not to do it. The Scottish, and this is what's interesting, in one country, the Scottish Health Service said it would not buy it from the US, regardless of how cheap it was, because it's very cheap. We will not buy it because we know drug addicts, etc., are selling it because they get paid for it in the US to sell their blood, right? So we're not buying it. And they didn't. And the Scots had very few haemophiliacs catching it. In Britain, we bought it, kept buying it, and haemophiliacs, as you know, I think the figure's something crazy like 5,000, maybe even more, maybe many more, of people died because they'd been infected by a factor that the government knew had a very good chance of being contaminated. And it waited something like 10, 15 years, whatever it is, until they actually had some inquiry. By then, nobody's interested. It's over, finished. And they're still just now about getting some money, some of these haemophiliacs whose parents were dying back in the 90s, 2000s. So this is what we do. Now, in other countries, when I looked at that, 4 or 5 Japanese killed themselves, committed harikari when they happened to them, when they, ministers, when they did it. boom, they killed themselves. Belgians had put people in prison. Some Americans were put in prison. But in the good old United Kingdom, nothing.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? It's mad. But kind of going back to the care homes thing. I mean, you know, I think what's astounding is that in Matt Hancock's narrative, he's alluding to the fact that if they just tested if they tested the right people, if they tested the people that needed to be tested, there wouldn't be enough tests left for him to meet his targets.
Yes. But that's crazy, isn't it?
I mean, yes, it's mind blowing, isn't it?
You know, but the fella's still running around. I believe just the other day there was it was a great thing actually. It was who's the lovely lady who used to do Countdown, great mathematician. She's very political as well. Carol Vorderman, that's her name. Carol Vorderman. She apparently was just yesterday or the day before, I saw on her Twitter, she was at Cheltenham and Matt Hancock came up to her and said, "Hi, I'm Matt." Yeah. And she said, "Yes, I'm Carol." And she said, "I know." And she said, well, I was just wondering how you are. And she said, I've got something on a race. I just want to watch the race. And apparently he's taken some objection to that. She had basically been rude to him, etc. But this is the thing now. Matt Hancock is now a very, if not popular, very well-known individual who is reaping the benefits of that. Which is why I asked you earlier on: is any publicity bad? Any publicity good publicity? Because he's reaping the benefits of his fame.
Going back to the original thing. Is he? I mean, you've got to remember that not only let's just cast our minds back to the pandemic, right? You know, he was caught on camera with his secretary, not obeying the 2 meter rule, and then left his wife.
What I find slightly problematic.
Then went on to I'm a Celebrity.
Yeah, what I find slightly problematic in the United Kingdom is, especially, and I want you to answer this one for me, please, especially where the press is concerned. If it comes on to matters of, let us say, the flesh, let's use that, all of a sudden there's an interest. The fact that his actions may or may not allegedly be the result of the deaths of 30,000 people, it seems as though the press isn't interested. The only thing that interests them seems to be some type of sexuality. I mean, is that a grown-up way for the press to act? I ask.
Well, I mean, he for a little moment he was the gift that kept on giving, wasn't he?
There we go. That's the
from the press side. From the press side, he was just, he was right. It was writing it himself. There are obviously many conversations going on now where, with hindsight, that we look back on unfortunate tragedies that as a result of media attention.
Is there a press formula?
Celebrity tragedies as a result of media attention, and
I know what you're talking about. Right. You're talking about Caroline Flack, yeah?
Yeah, but many. I mean, goodness, many. I mean, Paul Yates, George Michael, Princess Diana. I mean, you could. But all I'm saying is, in this case, right? He the government was standing there every night at 5 o'clock or whatever with their huge placards in front of them saying 2 meter distancing or whatever, and then he was caught on his own CCTV snogging his
absolutely
PA.
No, that's true, but I tell you why I'm asking you this, because it came out about 3 years back that there is a formula that Facebook, I don't want to call them, worked to, now Meta, which is now well known and well accepted throughout the world of social media and other types of media, I guess, as well, which basically said, because it did the study, people are 5 times more interested in the negative than any positive. Right? 5 times more interested in the negative than any positive. Therefore, what they do is they rank the negative. And if that's sexually orientated, it's even more interesting. So I was just wondering within your media circles, whether there is something that says, when you join media school on day one, they say, when you told me that fantastic one, dog bites man.
Dog bites man, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic, brilliant. if there's another one that says,
Matt Hancock went even better, because then he went off into the jungle for I'm a Celebrity.
Absolutely. Because how much did they pay him? You've got to figure it out. How much did they pay the guy? Which is why I asked you before, is there anything bad publicity?
Yeah. So what I would say
is there something like that? Give it to me. Don't be hiding these secrets. Give it to me.
I won't name this particular celebrity, right? But I looked after a particular celebrity for quite a few years, and actually every time he did a reality TV show, everyone was just praying that he'd stay in for an extra day, because it just kept him out of trouble. like in actual fact, having him on national TV every single day kept him out of trouble. But also, he wasn't, he was one of those celebs that any time somebody paid him in cash for a public appearance, he abused. Okay, let's consider my words. He wouldn't top it, and he wouldn't put it into his ISA, let's say.
Right. Okay. So let me ask you that question, because you're not answering it. Right, is there a formula that says, this will come on the front page?
What I'm saying to you, Carlton, is there was probably someone somewhere who went, Matt, do you know what, mate? You've done so. You've poked the bear so much. You've stirred up the hornet's nest so much. Why don't you just go to the jungle for a couple of weeks? Just be doing some.
Right, interesting. So you thought it was the other way.
Just eat some bugs for a few weeks, right? And then everybody will be talking about you eating bugs instead of.
Right. Okay.
Or, all the other things. So yeah, deflection is an amazing tool in press, right? But then, as a triple whammy, right? When he came third or something, didn't he? And when he
second, wasn't it? Was it? They might be third. Yeah. Third. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think he came. Anyway, wherever he came, and so Gina, the girlfriend, went out to be there. Mm-hmm. For him and sort of do the press conferences and all the rest of it, and he sent her home, and he stayed on for another 2 weeks to do more press conferences out there.
But they paid him 500 grand
as a celebrity for being in the jungle and coming third.
But they paid the guy 500 grand, didn't they? I mean, come on. He got that because he was that bad at his job. That's why he got paid. I mean, this is the lunacy of it. You paid 500 grand.
Lunacy of it. It's the complete lunacy of it. But also, I mean, the other thing that just being a wordsmith, the other thing that does sort of in equal parts horrify me, but also sort of the language that's used in those WhatsApp conversations, if we ever had to, I know we don't have to, and we've had many conversations about this, but I know we don't have to sort of ring fence the cultural backgrounds of the people involved in the Conservative Party, and actually, by definition they are what they are. But my goodness, like when you read things like, Boris saying, I'm going a bit crackers, or all saying like, do you know what I mean? It's like, goodness, there's no there's no diversity, there's no integrity, there's no
But they're not filtered, are they? You see, that's the thing with the WhatsApp. It's not filtered.
But going back to just going back to your original point, when you said, back in the day when you were, if you were having to say, oh, I think this line might be tapped, or I think that right? I won't say the words, but you would not have sent a message to that next person in the chain saying effing W is on the effing line.
No, but they might. Look, this is one of the things that shocked me, to be fair, when I first got into the branch and started working with senior politicians. Now, I'll be truthful and fair. When I first started working with politics, I probably first went on in terms of protection. Now, I first went on protection as a DC, as a detective constable in the branch, and we were very polite, etc. And amongst each other, some, not many in that era, used to use expletives. I've got to say that some of these old timers didn't so much. So I'm thinking of your Dougie Herds and stuff like that, they weren't using expletives. Okay. What I did realise is post that, and you had then the new Labour guys come in, there were some who were just basically effing and blinding all the time, men and women, all the time, right? And then that fed into the civil service effing and blinding, and it hadn't hit us, to be fair, in the beginning, to be effing and blinding as well. So that's a thing that you might think quite strange, that for want of a better word, the police, the special branch, weren't effing and blinding, and all those around them were effing and blinding, right? Subsequently, we did bring some people into the branch after, just before it was cut down, and after the systems had changed. It probably even after the systems had changed, to be fair. So after the process of getting in, the selection process was very, very strict and stringent. After that, and protection went to its own body, which I hated, but helped build it. I hated that idea, but that's, the commissioner said no more special branches are the way it is. Okay, you can't do anything about it. So the next time I was back on, we had people who were brought in then who were effing and blinding, and I thought, we've dropped down in standards. So we were in some ways the last to drop down in standards when the politicians were effing and blinding, everybody else was bloody effing and blinding. Terrible. So yeah, that language is not abnormal in those circles. It's just that you're now hearing it because it's not covered. It's you weren't meant to see it. It's not covered. They're speaking as they're normally speaking. And these new guys, I tell you, the old, and I don't want to say I love the old paternalistic Tory, because I'm not really a natural Tory guy in many ways, but at least those fellas and women generally knew how to act. And generally, yeah, they may have been doing whatever, but generally, if things would have gone wrong to the extent that they go wrong now, and you've been caught out, many of those old timers like that would have said, I'll call it a day. Now, that might be because they're independently wealthy, whatever, but they probably would have said, I'll call it a day and I'll resign. Today, these guys don't care. These guys and gals, they don't care. You have to drag them out. You have to drag them out by the hair, kicking and screaming. They won't leave their posts. The people you've got in now, the language they use from various individuals now that you've got in power. And I don't mean language, I just mean bad language in terms of, now not swearing, but in terms of how they're speaking about human beings. It's just unbelievable.
But okay, so let's say, right, so to flip this back the other way, right? At the point when all these, 100,000 WhatsApp messages went to the Telegraph, right? Probably every civil servant or backbencher or whatever in the country was going delete, right? But do
you know what? I don't think they would do.
But what I'm saying to you is, if it's now accepted that if you know, if Boris says to one of his party on WhatsApp, let's do this, right? But then that's actually a paper trail, and then suddenly they all get the fear because they realise that they've called.
No, well, they thought it wasn't a paper trail. That's the whole point.
But the whole point is where what I'm asking you is there an actual paper trail in terms of the government process, or has the whole process just muted onto a social media platform?
Right, exactly. There will be a very clean, sharp, thought through. And look, I'm not there, but I'm telling you, I believe that now wholeheartedly. There'll be a very clean, thought through, sharp, processed perspective put on paper, right? In whatever format.
Okay. So
there will be a file which in 40 years' time you'll be able to read and say, oh, aren't these very, very good? The reality, though, now is that the other things that are really going on have gone on to WhatsApp. That's right. What I'm saying.
But what I'm saying though, Carson, is like, so for example, when Matt Hancock was saying that the teachers are scared of work, you know, or whatever, when and calling down the teachers, would there at the same time have been a parity where there was the, you know, the clean and shiny documentation going through, or is this all just?
No, that wouldn't go down on paper. He would not have written that down on paper. That's the point I'm making. That he would have thought to himself, you know what, that can hang me. I'm not going to do that. He would have thought to himself, because, you know, they are great survivors. This is what politicians are. They are great survivors. That would not have gone down officially.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And I mean, God, you've only got to listen to yesterday's budget and to just be like, God, it's flipping pantomime, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like there was a point where I honestly expected Jeremy Hunt to be going, it's behind you.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's not. Oh no, it isn't. I mean, it's a pantomime. They just, you know, they just shoot each other down. But okay, all right. Well. Okay, let's talk about Isabel Oakeshott then. Right?
Okay.
because let's face it, right? Matt Hancock approached her to work with him on his biography.
Correct.
Right? Now, but she'd already done one for your mate DC, right?
Yep.
where she outed him for putting a dead pig's head on his head or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Which he, I don't know whether he did or didn't, but
did the Bullingdon boys do that? Did they, DC, as you want to call him, David Cameron for the uninitiated, do that in the Bullingdon Club? I don't know.
And you know, she's like, if you were going to pick a journalist to do this, right, you do your due diligence, or unless you actually want this to come out, and so you know, there is a question here, which is that, you know, having seen the way that Dominic Cummings like took his own brand into the media. Was there a bit of Matt Hancock who was thinking, hey, you know what? It doesn't matter that I was in the wrong on about 999,000 of those WhatsApp messages. There's a few where I look cool. So like,
I would imagine that the whole reason for Isabel Oakeshott, and as I say, I think you know her, I would imagine that the whole reason why he's chosen Isabel Oakeshott, who, as you know, was a big Brexiteer, and you know, back the wrong side when Brexit, and realised that Brexit is now a shower of you know what, but stood her corner and still says it's great. I would imagine that one thing that he thought, that's good, because we know that the way we've dealt with COVID was a big problem, but she can turn it into a silk purse, you know, a sow's ear into a silk purse. So maybe that's good. Also, I imagine that he thinks she's very, very well connected to publishers, etc., and maybe she can write it in such a manner that that's what they want, and therefore we can sell the book and I can get a lot of money out of it. So I would imagine that all what he's did in choosing Isabel Oakeshott was not what she might have done to DC down the line slightly, but more of, she can write well and get me loads of money, because as I kind of touched on it, many of these are not wealthy people in their own right anymore. You know, some of these, the ex-Tories, the older ones, were wealthy in their own right anyway. You know, but these guys aren't. So he's out of power now. So he's got to think to himself, how do I make money? Hence the jungle, hence the book, hence whatever will come up next. I don't know. It'd be in pantomime or something. You know, these guys have got to make money. So that's the difference. And I think that's
The
all
thing
that
is,
they
though,
thought
right,
about.
yeah, but the thing is, right, why would, if that was the case, why would you give her everything?
Because he's not bright. He don't appear to be bright. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. From what I saw in the jungle, he's one of the talented 10. And what I mean by that is, I think 10% of the people, no matter what you do to them, will come to the top. Now, that doesn't mean to say that they're great. It just means to say that they've got a certain tenacity, a certain capacity, a certain ability that they'll work their way through and they'll come to the top of the game. They could be the world's best bank robber, but they're going to come to the top. And he's one of those guys. So I think this guy might not be particularly ultra bright, but what he is he's a fella who will make out of it. He will be something and be somebody. And you know, he's done that. He's created that. He's done it. He's achieved it. Let's now write about it.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, but the only fallout that, you know, so he sent her, he gave her all this ammunition. Yep. She went, oh, actually, do you know what? It's more lucrative for me to give it to the Telegraph than write the book. And then he sent her a menacing message at 1:20 in the morning. But what's brilliant is that they whilst they're happy to leak the 100,000 messages, they don't want to leak the menacing.
Yeah. You see, the interesting thing will be, and we're going to have to start winding it down, because I want this to be one episode, and we're looking at 1 hour nearly, and so we will wind it down because this will fit superb in one episode. Now, what I will say is this to end on my side, and then you can ask the listeners what they may want, what they may think. But to end on my side, what I would say is this. I would say this. Isabel Oakeshott has got the capacity to be on every TV show whenever she wants to be, for whatever reason, right? And that's long before she touched Matt Hancock. That's why she's written the ex-Prime Minister's diary. So why would you not pick up on that person to do it for you? Now, the reason why I asked you right in the beginning is all publicity, good publicity, is because he may well have thought to himself, she may pull something negative out of here, but I'm going to have her sign an NDA, which basically says she can't. So the big question now is are NDAs worth the paper they're written on? That's now going to be the big question.
Well, that is the question, and actually, it's funny because at DAPS we were talking about this today. Not that we're in any way unethical, but what? No, not that we're in any way unethical.
No, you're not. Absolutely not.
But what we were sort of saying was that you know, what people are asking for in an NDA is often much smaller than what we actually do. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So we were kind of saying, like, should this whole thing just actually be redundant and we just go back to the old, you know, handshakes over lunch thing, you know? You know, is there another way to reinvent trust that isn't so, you know, that isn't like a DocuSign document?
Yeah.
Because what we were saying was not that, you know, that it's not in any way that we're.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I think listeners will as well.
We're trying to breach contract. What we're trying to do actually is sort of just reinvent it from the client's point of view by saying that actually what we you know, the authenticity and the brand reputation that we protect once we're into their sort of inner circle is a lot bigger than the NDA actually defines. So, you know, in a really short answer to your question, I guess the thing that, you know, that it would be a case of, well, what was the what did she have to lose?
Well, there's a thing called
and would the Telegraph have stumped that up?
There's a thing called squibble. Don't quibble, squibble. Right. There's a thing called squibble coming out, and that is designed basically to give you some element of protection against things exactly like what you're talking about, because it can be a rolling process. So I think that might make a big difference when that comes about. So that is one element. But I think that what the problem is, it's so expensive to get yourself a top lawyer who's going to look everything over perfectly, that actually most people probably don't bother doing it correctly. They don't go to the proper lawyer who can look at every line and every word on every line and make sure that everything's tightened up. Because she probably, and you'll know this, and I'm probably going to leave it on this, you'll know this, she would have gone to, as you were saying 2 weeks ago, she would have gone to the editor of the newspaper and said, this is what I had, legal. So the editor would say, let's go to the legal, and say, this is what I had as an NDA, how tight is that? And because they're happy to pay for a super top duper lawyer, that super duper lawyer probably said, he didn't cover this, he didn't cover that. Coaching horses through it. I'm guessing.
Well, I think to be fair, I think the fact that personally, I would say the fact that Boris was in on the chat automatically overrides everything to automatically make it in the public interest.
Right, I see what you're saying. So they're going to use public interest element, which is what she's used on already said that. But the big question is, where does NDA come into public interest?
Well, an NDA is only as strong as the bond between the two parties, isn't it?
Mm.
At the end of the day, there are governmental laws and there are laws of the country that override.
Yeah, but commercial laws are also important. I guess what you're saying there is, if you bring in a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 10th, 100th party, which is what you're doing if you're using WhatsApps, and you haven't been to every one of them and said, listen, are you happy with this coming out? You are also not standing by that. So I guess that.
Well, what to put this back in your world, Carlton? Let's say you were a part of you were part of a crime ring that did local robberies or something, and you'd asked everyone involved to sign an NDA, and then you caught the ringleader, and he said, oh, well, no one else will talk because they've all signed an NDA. Well, the police would say, well,
yeah, criminality is overridden. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Good point. Very good point as normal.
I'm going to say to wrap this up, right? I'm going to say, right. How do your listeners feel about WhatsApp? Do they feel comfortable and safe in the landscape of WhatsApp? Do people feel like potentially they look back on previous conversations with other people in their lives, whoever those people might be, and think, goodness, I wish I could just delete that? Or do they look at things thinking, this is really positive and I want to preserve this? Or do they think, actually, this tech platform has a heck of a lot of information?
Mm-hmm. And that's why I think it's already been hacked by the NSA, at least, if not maybe somebody like the Chinese as well. That's what I would imagine. Right, now, so my other side to this, but I don't know.
Rebecca Vardy.
or us as well, or GCHQ. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I don't know. Right, so let me say this. My point would be, that's a great point of yours, my point would be, is this. What do listeners think of government being done via a system that makes sure that is not put down officially? Because this is the reason why they're doing it. They're usurping the official process by going via WhatsApp. And that's
exactly.
So I ask listeners to give their feelings on that.
And how do your listeners feel about the fact that government policies might be decided by a thumbs up emoji or a smiley face emoji, or like love hearts eyes emoji, or
Very true.
Sad face emoji.
Yeah, very true.
Oh well, look, I'm proud that for once we've managed to wrap it up in time.
We have. It's an hour long. It's an hour long one, but hey, it's got to be in one. This one, it has to be in one. So, ladies and gentlemen listening, or just guys and gals, thank you very much for listening today. Again, very happy to have my partner in crime back on with me. It's always a laugh. It always gets into the weeds, and I love it. So I just hope that you contact either of us and tell us what you think. And hopefully we'll see you again next week. That's from me. And from you, Firgas?
Yeah, good night, everyone. If you need to, reach out, chat. We love it. We love doing this, and we're really grateful that you guys love listening to us.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe for free.
Here is a working class spy telling his stories, the secrets, the lives of spies. Feel free to message Carlton King on all socials and give this show 5 stars on Apple iTunes and subscribe so you never miss a single episode. For your ears only.
I was a member of Her Majesty's Secret Intelligence Service.